We are going to discuss the British conquest of the Sokoto Caliphate. The British conquests of the Sokoto Caliphate. The Sokoto Caliphate was a well-structured, organized, united and powerful Islamic political structure that existed in West Africa. A good part of what was the Sokoto Caliphate is in present-day Nigeria. If you have watched our video on the jihad of Uthman and Fodio, you understand the factors, developments that led to the formation of the Sokoto Caliphate. The formation of the Sokoto Caliphate was as a result of the conquest and coming together of Hausa kingdoms. The unity of these Hausa kingdoms brought about the establishment of the Sokoto Caliphate. Now, at a time, the British started having interest in taking over the Caliphate, where the increased activities of the Europeans, the scramble for and partition of Africa, gave the region here the Sokoto Caliphate existed to the British. The British were given the authority to stamp their control on that region. In the early stage of the control, the British gave charter to a British-owned company called African Company to control activities in this area. But the activities of this company, or the members of the European members of this company, were not very encouraging to the British government. The British had to retrieve or remove this charter from this company. Having removed this charter, they decided to stamp their control. They decided to take over the complete control of the region. And remember that the Sokoto Caliphate had a very refined structure, a very refined political structure. The Caliphate was divided into emirates. Each emirate was under the control of an emir, while the Caliph is the overall, or was. Each emirate was under an emir, while the Caliph was the overall leader of the Caliphate. Well, the remnant of this structure still exists today in the traditional and religious structure in Nigeria. In today's Nigeria, you still have emirs manning different emirates, and you also have the Sultan of Sokoto, who is standing in, or who has the position of the Caliph of Sokoto Caliphate. Now, with this interest come the desire for takeover. Already there was a structure, and the British, having the intention of indirect rule system, needed to take over this structure. Now, having removed the powers of the charter given to the company, the British made a move to take over this company, this political structure called Sokoto Caliphate. Before this period, the British had a strong, effective military force in West Africa called the West African Frontier Force. The increased activities or the increased usage of the West African Frontier Force was after the British carried out expedition in the Ashanti region of present-day Ghana. The earliest part of the Sokoto Caliphate that the British took control of were Bida, Ilorin, and Kotangora. This was because these three emirates under the Sokoto Caliphate came together in order to resist the advances of the British. So the British took over the control of these areas in as early as around July 1900. After taking over these emirates, the desire to continue taking over other parts of the empire of the caliphate increased. By this period, the British have brought in some forces or some of their soldiers from the Ashanti region. This helped them. Now, an expedition was carried out in 1901 under the control of Colonel Malland. And their main target was Yola. In that expedition, Yola was defeated. Well, the forces of Yola were able to put some stiff resistance, but they were defeated by the British. After Yola, with the defeat, the emir named Emir Zubairu fled. When he fled, he was replaced by his brother, who pledged loyalty and allegiance to the British. His brother's name was Bobo Ahmed. Well, the German were also interested in the caliphate, but they couldn't come in properly because the partitioning of the area didn't favor them. The German took a big control of the Emirate of Adamawa, which was still part of the Sokoto Caliphate. By the February 1902, another force from the British was sent to occupy the neighboring Borno, the Borno Empire that you may have heard in the study of African history. On their way, they made Bauchi and Gombe to submit. Bauchi and Gombe were still part of the Sokoto Caliphate. Well, the submission of Bauchi and Gombe happened without major war or major combat. They pledged loyalty to the British. By the March of 1902, Zazzau succumbed without a fight. However, the emir of Zazzau was deposed around August. In June of that same year, 1902, Agungu, the famous fishing town in Nigeria, was occupied by the British. So the British occupation of Sokoto Caliphate did not just happen in the same time. it was segmental. One emirate or region to another. So the rest of 1902, Lord Lugard, who was actually the person overseeing all this British occupation, started preparing for war against Sokoto and Kano. Sokoto and Kano were the basis or the pillar of the caliphate. Kano being the most secured region or emirate, while Sokoto also the same way as the seat of power. In November, the West African Frontier Force was increased in the order of Lord Lugard. The garrison at Zaria was strengthened. Then Lord Lugard intended to attack Kano from Zaria. There were also the concentration of food supply for the army. Well, the Emirate of Kano, envisaging what was coming, started preparing for war against the British forces. They repaired the Great Wall of Kano, changed the gates, brought in arms from Tripoli, prepared for the war. A large quantity of arms were brought in from Tripoli, with the help of merchants, Arab merchants, and also with the help of some runaway WAF soldiers. By the way, these WAF soldiers, most of them were blacks. So not basically Europeans, but they were fighting for the Europeans. So the emir instructed that any European found in Kano should be killed. The fate of the caliphate was to be decided by the outcome of the war, mainly with Kano Emirate. This was basically because Kano Emirate was the richest and the most fortified. In January 1903, Lord Lugard ordered the advancement in Kano. Colonel Maland set out with a large force. Colonel Maland set out with a large force. But something happened. The emir, then Aliyu, had gone to Sokoto to pay homage to the caliph, which was a custom that the emir of each region will have to go and pay homage to the caliph. And the emir left with his principal staff and some other leaders that were controlling the emirates. Well, he also went with some district heads, mainly in the western part. This made it difficult for them to coordinate themselves on the face of attack from the British. And for this reason, their forces could not put up much resistance. Kano was defeated. From Kano, the British marched towards Sokoto. In Sokoto, the Caliph was a bit confused. There were precisely Caliph Hero. There were issues. There were three sets of persons, then with three different opinions. The first were people that preferred that they submit to the loyal to the authority of the British. There were some that came up with the idea that they have to fight or defend themselves, while another group requested for hijra. Hijra is a Muslim activity, the activities that are supposed that most of the jihadists carried out before coming back for a kind of jihadic activity, where the leader is expected and his followers is expected to move to a different region from where they will come back. Well, Hero thought about adopting the hijra, but before they could plan the hijra, the British have already attacked. So with the attack of the British, they, put up an uncoordinated response. However, in less than 20 minutes, most of what was left of Sokoto army was defeated. The only group that gave stiff resistance were the little number of soldiers that were defending the Sokoto flag, and they held on to their defense unto death. At last, the British captured the flag of Sokoto Caliphate. Well, Hero fled eastwards, and he was determined to make the hijra. With his final intention, destination, he was thinking of getting down to Mecca with a good number of his followers. But the British forces followed him up to Bumi, where he and his followers made their final resistance. Well, the Muslims at Bumi fought with all the zeals of those fighting a jihad in defense of Hero and his men. About 600 of them were killed. Among those that died was Hero himself and some of the people that accompanied him. Meanwhile, on the 19th of March 1903, Sokoto formally submitted to Lugard. Mohammed Tabar B. Ali B. Mohammed Bello Hero II was made the leader of the British-controlled Sokoto Caliphate. He took the title Hero II. Well, his title was changed from Caliph to Sultan. Now, if you look at the history of the Sokoto Caliphate, the traditional and religious structure of Sokoto Caliphate that exists today in Nigeria, the head of the Sokoto Caliphate goes with the title Sultan of Sokoto, and he is the head of the other emirates in what was former Sokoto Caliphate region. The title the person goes with is Sultan. But that previously it was Caliph. But with the conquest of the British, the title was moved from Caliph to Sultan. So the conquest of the Sokoto Caliphate was not done the same time. It was done on a sequential and systematic method. A good part of the Sokoto Caliphate was taken without any military expedition. And most of the disloyal emirs or leaders, district heads, were deposed. And those loyal to the British government were installed. This is a bit of the history of the conquest of the Sokoto Caliphate. Please subscribe to our channel and click on the notification so that whatsoever history or the commentary that we make available, you will be able to have it with you. Thanks.